Bretto, after an extremely tough 2020 for many, it is so exciting to announce our first in real life event for 2021.
Oh, MP, it's an understatement to say we miss connecting with our tribe, but it makes the 2021 Wellness Breakthrough all the more exciting.
If you're ready to rebound or to make a comeback and even make 2021 your best year yet, you are warmly invited to join Brett, myself, and an intimate group of like-minded souls at the Wellness Breakthrough from February 5 to 7.
Imagine yourself tucked away in the serene Strzelecki Ranges of Gippsland, Victoria. You don't have to cook, you don't have to clean or do anything domestic. We feed you, we accommodate you, we hold the space for you to create your own wellness breakthrough.
Whether it's in your health, your relationships, work, life, wealth, spirit, any part of your life, you can expect major transformation at our most intimate event.
We'd love for you to join us, but spaces are strictly limited to 20 attendees. And as we record this, we have less than 10 spaces left.
For more info, to watch the highlights of previous years and to join us from February 5 to 7 in 2021, go to thewellnessbreakthrough.com.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, where inspired women talk about the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness. We ask, in what ways can we show up more fully, live more meaningfully, parent more wholly, and love more unconditionally? How can we mine the wisdom from the experiences of our lives and expand into those challenges? If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs, so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way. And if you feel like giving a little back to this free content, please become a patron of the show and receive extra member benefits for less than a coffee a month. Or you can leave a review on iTunes and Facebook, all of which helps the podcast keep going and reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul. Head on over to patreon.com/NTM podcast to find out more. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is shining the shit out of 2020. Thank you, Bridget. So before we jump into, one, how you do that, and two, the set of questions that we ask ourselves at the end of every year when we are shining the shit of any year, but most especially what has been a very
tumultuous?
Yes, I was trying to think what the word was. Thank you. Yeah, then we would really invite you to join this conversation, to get out your pen and paper ready to journal for yourself, because we need to be able to gain the wisdom before we can carry forwards and create intentions for manifestations and New Year's resolutions. We really want to own what has been and make sure that we're gaining out of that what has been offered to us within those experiences. So that's where we are taking the conversation today. Before we do that, I'd love to remind you to jump on to nourishingthemother.com.au, scroll on down to the red banner and drop in your email, where once every so often we send you off an email with everything we've put out in the world with links, so you can pick and choose where you'd love to dive deeper. So nourishingthemother.com.au.
So we were like hashing out what this subject of this could be, and what we're saying, like, you know, shifting the sludge, and I was like, shining the shit of 2020.
And we couldn't stop laughing.
So that's how we came to this title. But I think, you know, whether it was a devastating year for you, or whether you rolled with it and witnessed the challenge in the outer world, it was still you know, collectively and personally for many people a very challenging year.
I don't honestly think there's anyone who's cruised through this year. I really don't.
Because even those, I mean, I often think with years like this, that principle, like that the most number of millionaires were made in history in like the Great Depression, right? So we know that too at the moment, like Amazon's gone gangbusters, like all of the billionaires and the millionaires have done amazing. But they've still obviously had to like up level a shit ton even to be able to achieve that. So it doesn't matter whether you're affected, whatever level, you're still, when there's that much going on in the outer world, that the world that you know is transforming at such a rapid rate, there is a lot of regulation of yourself and your identity and just how you're dealing with life that has to happen on a day-to-day basis. And this year has pulled the rug out of people, underneath people so many times, particularly if you're in an area like us in Melbourne, which has gone in and out of lockdown so many times, that you really just kind of have to go, here we go again. I'm holding on.
Yeah, 100%. So I would love for us just to dive into perhaps these questions and the application of them for our own lives.
Sure.
So what have you learned? The year that was 2020.
That feels like such a big question.
It is a massive question, but that's why we have to ask it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't realise your growth, you perceive that you're paddling going nowhere when in truth you've swum miles.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to celebrate the small successes to even see and feel the big ones, right? So for me, this question is all of that. I need to see what I've done. And I need to just take a moment to love and appreciate that in all of its glory, of course, being its light and its dark. Because like you've just alluded to with the story of the billionaires, you can look like you're killing it in one version, but we know there's an always relatively equal balance of challenge and support. So it might not be in money, but it will be just as challenging somewhere else.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So what have I learned? I think I've learned the value of strong foundations.
Break that down.
So the value, so if we consider so many areas of life, the value of strong relationships, the value, so that means resilient relationships that that can hold you and help you regulate yourself when you can't.
How do you know if you have one of those?
When you look at challenges and know that you've got each other, that you have each other's back, or that when you know that your capacity is down, that somebody else will be able to take up space. That you see and look for blessings where it's initially hard to find them. That you see your relationships as growing you and not something that is dragging you down, I suppose.
So back to building strong foundations. What else does that mean for you?
It means money-wise, saving. Because it was the fact that we had a sizable amount of money saved that didn't make me completely collapse when my husband lost his job. Because we have a sole breadwinner with 3 children and mortgages to pay off. And it was the fact that even in the moment that happened, I knew we still had several months of money that we could live on. And I think that this was a year that really, really challenged people in that area. And so I was grateful for those strong foundations. They could have been stronger. They could still be stronger. But there was enough safety there that I could master my emotions enough to be able to hold the space for my husband for his unraveling in that process. And that was a gift.
It's fucking Jedi, mate.
Yeah. I think I really felt that I needed him to allow him to have that experience. And that if I had have like collapsed, then I don't know that he could have. And I think he needed to in order to process what had happened. You know what I mean?
No, I do. Because if two people collapse, there's no holding.
Yeah.
So largely then the children will become the holders of that
right.
space.
And I intuitively knew that that wasn't going to be happening in my house.
Yeah.
So
I remember though watching you going through that thinking, fuck, I found it inspiring. It was pretty amazing. Like you were really super conscious.
I went into Soul Driven Motherhood that night and like just debriefed on like what had just happened.
Yeah, you did. But what I remember is really watching you going, I can feel that there's edges and I can feel that my nervous system could just like zing off the Richter. But it was your straddling between I see it and I can hold that over here because I've got kids and I want to show up in these ways. And I think it was that level of mastery that I went, wow, that's amazing.
Thanks.
No, I'm really Jedi.
Yeah, and I think also that was what really also helped him see that. I mean, I also had like a pretty solid belief that we weren't going to be like completely screwed, which helps.
It's hard to hang on to though.
I think I just kept holding faith, like kept holding faith. And because I didn't, because we kept talking and we kept talking about his connections that he could call on, that the importance again of relationships, that you never burn bridges. You don't burn bridges because you never know when you're going to need those again.
So true.
So that was fortunate that, you know,
so true,
that those foundations were there for him as well. What other solid foundations? I think also
deep on relationship and money.
I think a level of health that you know, initially, even when all of this started to unfold, that I never really was concerned with the health of anybody immediately close to me. And so there's a resiliency there. It allows you to kind of go, okay, tuck that in wider, you know, like the next thing. Strong foundations, what other areas? Socially too, like socially knowing that we've got a network of parents that even in the isolation that I still felt like my children could have a level of engagement with or connection with, maybe not in the hard lockdown, but around those, which was powerful. And also helped me, like gave me spaciousness. And, you know, I think that, I mean, look, my husband losing his job was actually a great blessing, really, because I think I would have deeply struggled being in hard lockdown because he didn't work from home at all. So none of the time that we were ever in lockdown was he ever at home, except for the time where he'd lost his job. And that was for 5 weeks. He was at home, or 6 weeks. And that was the reprieve that I needed to be able to go again. Because by the time we went into the hardest lockdown, he was back in a job. So I think I would have come out of that a lot more shattered, I think, had we not had that experience of him also being home. That was a blessing.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And he built a shed, which was cool, which he would still be building had he not had 5 weeks off. Yeah. Got some projects done.
And you really worked on up-leveling at that point in time too.
Yeah, it did. It pushed me. I felt it's an enormous way to go. But where I could have just let my business just completely stagnate because I can't do events. Like, it's really easy to just go, well, of course I can't because I can't run my business. It forced me to go, okay, well, how could I? And what would I love to teach right now? What would I love to explore right now? What would I love to open my business up into potentially being? That was amazing because it's allowing me to see that it's so much broader than what I thought it had to be. at a time also when I felt like I was losing momentum anyway with how I'd been doing it. So that was a cool blessing. Like, thanks COVID for that. Other areas for strong foundations.
Or what 2020 has brought you in lessons, or what you've learned.
Just keep showing up.
What does that mean?
Sometimes it's like one foot in front of the other. And showing up in all, like, I mean, there's, the times when, like, actually, this layer of, like, outer world challenge feels really heavy in my body right now. And so, sure, I know all the ways to process it mentally, but actually I just want to be with the heaviness in my body right now. And allow that. And choose to feel that. And choose to have my kids see that as a gift to witness, not make it mean that my kids see my mum not coping, right? Like that story. To actually see the value in my kids witnessing me in that way. That was cool. And more softening, I think, too. And also really recognizing that, again, that truth, like, come back to your circle of control and your circle of influence. Like, this year has shown us how much is out of our control, and we can either kind of keep spinning our wheels and waiting for the outer world to change or fix itself or go back to normal, or put ourselves in some, more, I don't know, purposeful driver's seat, knowing that there's so much that's up for transformation outside of us, that how do we come back into seeing where the transformation is inside of us, and amplifying that, not trying to make the outer world kind of fit the construct that we've decided it needs to be. I mean, I think it's been an amazing year, really, like, in terms of asking us to collectively up level. But that comes with a lot of pain often too. Like, it's pretty brutal in many ways. But then I think about, like, the way it's, some industries and some models of doing things have evolved more in 6 months than they would have in 20 years. And, like, of course that then comes with deep growing pains. But I don't know, a little bit like wars, like, we can't hate them completely, because look at what human progress has done with them. And I think the same can be said now. But for many of us, if it's really raw, that can be hard to hear as well.
What do you think the collective up-leveling has been?
I think it's a connection back to community. I think it's asking us to find our resilience again in community and our connection again in community, because when you don't have all of these ways to escape, you are on the bare bones of, like, the structures that you've built. And for many people, if you've always lived in such a way that you outsource everything and that your life is very materialistically driven, this year would have been really brutal, because it strips everything back and it asks you, what do you want to put back in? And that can be a deeply uncomfortable conversation if you've never had that conversation with yourself before. So I don't know what my point of that was.
Been scratching your hand the entire way through that.
Why am I doing that? That's so interesting.
Isn't it? Is that like the scratching of the skin, like the snake that's shedding its skin, it's itchy?
Yeah. It's part of, like, the actual process.
Well, I wondered, yeah.
Yeah. And hands, what is hand representative of? Holding on. Is it?
I don't know. I'd have to look that up. I really think you can
make it mean whenever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, you totally can. Yeah. Maybe it's also just that, like, thing of, like, yeah, like, how much of these hands done this year? Like, how much have we asked ourselves to, transform and hold and be with, and now we're kind of going, what do we want to take from it? What meaning do you want to make from it?
Do you think that wraps up your lessons
Yes.
in 2020?
Well, I mean, I don't know, but yes, right now it does.
At this point,
at this juncture, yes. I'd love to hear yours.
No, we're moving on.
Oh,
how have you grown?
Oh, I feel like I don't feel like I can say I've grown yet. Like I still feel like I'm deep in this.
That feels like in a juxtaposition with what we've just spoken about.
Oh, it does a little, doesn't it? I guess I still, in terms of grown, I still feel like I'm like the caterpillar inside like the chrysalis, like just like kind of like with.
Mate, that's called life.
Well, yeah, I know. But I feel like I've kind of like pulled, like I've kind of like got one wing kind of like out and like the light's shining in, but I haven't kind of like shed it yet.
Okay, so tell me about the wing that's out.
What does the wing that's out say? How have I grown? I think there's just seeing greater possibility and less rigidity in the way things need to be.
For you?
For me and collectively. I think we're learning that. I think we're learning, and I mean, we're learning really means I'm learning, right? That fuck, like we can kind of create anything. Like this year has just shown us how much when you're.
The literal impossible has happened this year. Like literally.
Yeah.
Well, the world has stopped in ways that we
unfathomable.
Said it never could be.
Yeah. And so if the world can stop in that way, like, why the fuck would I still be standing still?
Yeah.
So there's that. And with that comes a lot of being with, like, uncomfortable patterns and being with the, like, level of bullshit that we create all of the time in our own minds about ourselves. So, but that I'm still really like in the sludge of, I feel like. But I think that when you see that the world can change so much, you can't then not turn that mirror back on yourself. Like you have to. And so that is powerful and both powerful and painful to say, to see, I think, and go, why have I chosen that? Why do I keep choosing that? And then go, what would it look like to choose something different or show up in this way instead or relate in this way instead or see that actually what I really believed, I could actually believe the opposite and that would still be okay. And that, like, that's powerful but also deeply humbling and, like, identity crushing as well. So I think I've found more capacity for seeing, which is pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. Has your literal vision changed?
I don't know, actually. It'd be good to get my eyes tested.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't had them tested for a long time. I know I need to. It'd be cool if my prescription decreased.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
I'm going to do that.
Totally possible.
It is.
Mine has decreased every year for the last 3 years.
Has it?
Yeah.
That is so cool.
It's so cool, isn't it? Yeah, it's so cool. Every time we go and he goes, oh, you know, it's less. Like it's decreased so much. Even my stigmatism.
Really? That's fantastic.
Well, I just find it fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it's entirely possible that, like, the more that you are able to see,
the more you can see. Yeah. And in fact, the last time, which was actually a year ago, would you do go again? He said, and your night vision has really improved. I'm like,
yeah, because do you not know how much shadow I'm going into?
I know.
Do you not know?
I have walked in the dark.
I love that.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah,
cool.
So I was just thinking, you have to go get it done.
I will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Got any more for me?
I was going to say grown. I was coming back to the question.
Have I not answered that?
Well, I was just checking in with you. Have you fully answered it, or do you feel like there's more?
Am I complete or not?
And by saying that you've only got one wing out, are you really honouring the growth that has been?
I set out this year to become a better lover and a better teacher.
What was your word for this year?
I don't remember. I don't remember what my word was.
Do you not write it down?
I don't know. Oh, I might have written it.
Did you write it on Amplify?
Maybe I did. I'll go and have a look. I've been really big on the word, but I don't know where I wrote it. And so
anyway, better lover
and better teacher. And so I can see how there's been enormous ways in which I've been asked to step into that.
Both of those you've grown in.
Both of those. I have grown in them. But I guess like anything, I'm like, yeah, but I want to be there. You know? like that's
not the point of this question.
Yes, I know. It's not the point of this question. Yes.
The point of this question is to honour the path that you've travelled.
I feel like I've seen where I want to teach and where I don't want to teach. I don't want to teach my kids. I thought I did.
Oh, my God, me too.
I don't.
It's so been my lesson from this year as well. That's really, it's been great, a great lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's been powerful. Like, but also kind of having to like really accept that and sit with that and like own that has also been like a little bit of pain in it, but like ultimately.
And identity for me too.
Like I should want to and.
Well, yeah, and I also think it was a bit of ego dismantling as well, because I think secretly I always had this thing in the back of my head where I was always like, I could do it better. I don't really have to conform to the system and I really have to love it because I've got this kind of backup plan.
But I can do it better.
Yeah. Pretty sure it'll be more amazing. Which, if I invested my heart and soul in it, don't doubt for a second it would be.
Yeah, it would be.
Because I would fucking rock that shit.
I'm just not willing to, like, invest in what I know it would take.
That's what I learned this year.
Yeah, me too. Which you and I both had to travel that because there was a time where we were like, fuck it, let's just do it.
Oh, every year. I reckon just about every 6 months I go through cycles of that.
Even today I was talking to some homeschool mums and I was like, oh,
yeah.
maybe I could.
I get it, me too. Because you and I travel in those circles.
Their lifestyle sounds so fantastic.
Well, and just the values and certainly
values.
the opportunities.
And how they're able to really craft an education for their child.
Yeah, and even all of the conversations now about, you know, we recognise, like, I mean, you were there the other night when we were wrapping my books and one of my friends was there who's, you know, been a teacher all of her life and is teaching high school, and she was implementing, you know, talking about the new wave implementation of programs within her school system, which was looking at more having a student body that has conversations around what they're taught and how they're taught and curriculum and so on and so forth. But even in those conversations, which are in and of themselves innovative, kind of leave me with a feeling of depression because I'm like, yes, creativity has been stifled and has lost the system, like is lost.
Yeah, totally.
We are definitely, I mean, she was even clearly saying, you know, we know now as the, you know, big cogs of education wheels that we've still got an industrialized system.
Yeah.
But what we need is creative.
It doesn't matter what, like, how many band-aids are stuck on it. It's still like a festering wound.
Yeah. So, I mean, she was essentially saying, so now we recognise the pendulum as a large-scale education initiative has to swing the other way and become more child-led, independent learning plans, creatively adaptive and focused, which should be exciting. But instead I go, it's not changing in my children's education.
It's going to be that's going to be a slow moving.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so actually you can see all the homeschool mums are like totally on the front foot knowing that
totally. And that's why I say, I go through cycles of it because I'm like, I see it. I get it. I just can't do it.
I just can't do it to the level of justice that I'd want to do it.
Totally.
That's the thing.
Totally. But also in the balance of life, like it would become my job, which it did when you and I did make lemonade at the start of the year in our first lockdown. That's how we mentally prepared and got through it for the first lockdown. Was we went, let's make, what was your saying? When life hands you lemons, make lemonade, which is how that program came about. And we collaborated with incredible women doing incredible things on the homeschooling and
we really did.
Yeah.
And I admire their stuff so much.
Oh my gosh. And implemented them, and I was like gangbusters, basically aborted our homeschooling, you know, system education and just did my own with my children for that first 6 weeks or whatever it was. And for about the first 4 weeks, it was fucking glorious. And I was like,
I'm nailing this shit.
I am the best. I am everything I thought that I was going to be in a homeschooling teacher. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And then the life balance kicked in. And I was like, but I really miss now all of the time that I'm spending investing on what we're going to do and how I'm going to meet their minds, education needs, what are fun ways that we can explore this particular topic, how can I scale that across 4 children who are at 4 very different developmental stages. All of the research that I was pouring into creating these incredible experiences, I previously would have used for my own work. And now there was no time for that. And I went, oh.
I see
I
what's
don't
happening
like this. Because I know I'm a better human when I'm doing my work in the world. It's a piece of my soul. And if I say I won't do that because I wish to be in service to my children, to give them everything of me, I don't think that's a better education.
No. There's a level of resentment that you are not meeting.
But also, what am I teaching them?
To give up everything of yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Ignore your own soul. Don't push yourself past your own limitations or perceptions of limit. Don't do what you truly want to do. It's not possible. I see that the education I give my children by virtue of following my own soul
is an education in
itself.
Totally.
I look at the way my children now look at the world, careers, money, opportunity. It is radically different to their peers. Radically different. And that's not because of school.
Yeah.
That's because they've seen me.
Yeah. And how's that like 10 times better than like an economics class or something?
Right. Right. And so out of all of that, I was like, okay, this is really important for my soul, and I can actually see how this is of equal benefit in all of the ways that I could provide for them. And education, this is also one. But that was a hard pill to swallow for me.
Yeah. Because
I also see how it could be magnificent for them. But if I'm not lit up,
they kind of get a shell of you,
right? I just don't see how that's more like when we're equilibrating everything.
Yeah,
nothing's missing. No one is better and no one is worse. But you've got to equilibrate them.
But that's getting past your own attachments to how you think it needs to be in order to allow the beautiful form in which it could come. Like, you know, if I attach to the idea that I had to provide all this incredible education to my child, then I'm shutting off the opportunity for someone who's possibly much better suited to provide that to my child to be able to do that. Because I think I need to be all things, right?
Totes. Totes. What are you taking with you from this year?
Oh, that feels big.
This is the thing though, right? This is the point of these questions, is that you sit in stillness long enough to recognize what it is that you've traversed, what it is that you've gained, and then surveying those jewels and deciding which ones stay buried in the earth here and which ones am I carrying forwards on my crown next year.
I think deeper love.
What does that mean?
I've certainly deepened my intimacy with my husband, which has been really awesome, and that was a goal of mine. More of the mirrors of my children that I've had to meet, and that you know, those harsher edges have had me have to expand what love looks like. And also where my boundaries are as well. So that would be the biggest thing that I take from it.
Anything else you want to carry forwards with you? It's raining here and quite heavily, so we apologise if there's background noise.
I think, like, the permission for greater creation and freedom. Because when you, I love the fact that when you perceive that you don't have freedom outside of you, well, you have to mine the depths of your own self to find the freedom inside of you. So I actually loved the exercise of stretching my perceptions when we were during lockdown, when we were under restrictions, when I felt like I wanted to like rip our premier's head off.
You did a lot of work.
I did
on that though.
Yeah, I did. To find the freedom, where is it? What's the benefit of feeling locked down? What's the benefit of being controlled in my perception? And actually, it just made me find more and more freedom and flexibility within myself, rather than looking for it outside of me. So
magic,
that ability to transmute that and not get stuck, because I think also like when you're in online environments, you can see the stories people get stuck in and then how they feed it more and more with doing whatever group you're in. To just be able to sit back and watch how we all do that, but that ultimately when we can come back to the choice in any moment of what path we go down, we then realize what's actually available to us. So, because, you know, there's so many ways in which even my husband losing his job, I could have like got angry or resentful or made it some big deal, or find the capacity in it, find the freedom in it, find the permission in it, find the choice in it, even though it'd be easy to say it's just happened to us and how bad is it, and you know, all of that.
I do. That still fascinates me, that dichotomy that you've brought up, because ultimately out of any traumatic experience, of which a job loss is one, people are either going to go down one of two paths: post-traumatic stress, or post-traumatic growth.
Yeah, it's true.
What makes you pick one over the other? That still fascinates me, because as you know, like you, I assume, though, I mean, you and I don't talk about clients. In case you know, Bridgie and I have separate coaching clients. We don't actually talk about them together. Yeah. So I'm going to make the assumption that you work with people who have experienced trauma in various forms, similarly to the way that I do. And it fascinates me still. What is the defining characteristics that decide whether someone chooses to experience post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic growth out of the same experience?
Which is essentially whether you're perceiving the stress as eustress or distress. So because your perceptions is what is determining what that stress is for you. And so a little bit like trauma is it's too much, too soon, too fast. Similarly, a stressful event, you know, if I had all these other things stacked on top of, or stacked beneath the next thing, which was my husband losing his job, then perhaps my story would have been very different. But that there was a resourcefulness that was already there that meant that could be a stress that I could see as a stress that I could move toward, and not a stress that can immediately consumed us.
Would you say you saw it as on the way, not in the way?
Yeah. And every experience of a job loss, you know, for either of us, or for him, and for my brother, who I saw that was like the best thing that happened to him. My experiences of job losses have been ones that have grown the people that I love, not seen them shrink. So I also have evidence that says that it's not this terrible affliction. So that helps. Because remember, we're also just plugging into the existing belief systems that we already have with things like that.
It's fascinating.
It is. It is.
So anything else you want to share on shining the shit from 2020? Any words of wisdom from your own experiences that you could offer others as here's what I'd love for you to take from my experience to shine your own shit.
I just offer an opportunity to reflect on where you're holding a rigid position or a rigid point of view on your year, on it being all this and none of that, or where you're feeling pretty black and white about something, and to invite yourself to see a little bit of grey in there, to see a little bit of benefit in that which you really judge as or bad. And even the things that you think are amazing or that you witness in others that you think must be amazing for them, what kind of the drawbacks could be. Because everything has both sides. We can't escape that. We live in a dualistic universe or dualistic human form. And so I think those questions can be empowering in a time that for many could be really disempowering. And I think that there's a lot of power structures at the moment that are seeking to really maintain the hold that they have. But it's in the quality of these questions that we can ask that we take back our own power and not be so governed by those outer structures, because we build our self-governance within to have our own more autonomy and more freedom, even in that constraint. But I also really want to love you in it, because fuck, sometimes it's brutal.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's fucking shit. And there are many people who lost double incomes and, like struggled to feed their kids and, were thrust into atrocious, family dynamics and, and that was, I think, what I found most. Like I had a panic attack the first. I never had a panic attack before. Was it the first lockdown or maybe the second one? I can't even remember.
I do remember you ringing me.
Yeah.
But I can't remember which one it was.
But it wasn't personally, it was more collectively. I felt like I was really tapping into like what I just knew would be happening in families and to children particularly that I found very hard to come at.
Well, we know that though it's not printed in the media, is that it's not reported on, but we know that child abuse and domestic violence increased in the hundreds of percents.
Wow. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
No, it's like a few friends who work in that. It's at least a 300 to 400% increase.
Wow. And then, as we know, how that's going to increase, like the trauma that gets passed down, that's a ripple effect that goes for decades. And decades.
Exactly.
And so.
Exactly.
And that's also where I therefore get angry at like the whole thing.
No.
At the,
really hear that.
Yeah. So that's probably where I when I really go contemplate that I find really difficult. But because the purpose of these questions was more our own internal experience, that's what I placed
and it was
this on. But when I sit with the collective experience and the experience of those different from my own, there is a lot of tenderness there, because there's a lot that I just can't reconcile. I could if I did the work on it, but there's also there's parts of our humanity that I think we just need to be with, the challenge of and try to send healing to in whatever form that can come in. And there's so many services that are going to be extremely stretched for a long time as a result of that kind of trauma.
Yeah, it's devastating. It is.
Over to you. Can I ask you some questions?
Yeah. I'm tired, so let's see how we go. Do you want the questions?
Yeah.
You don't have to. Please don't feel bound.
No, I'm sure we'll just see where it goes. What have you learned from 2020, Julie?
I can do way more than I think I can.
I was waiting for you to say that. Yeah. And you already do a lot. So you took it to the next level.
Yeah, I did. It was a mini crisis every step of the way, though. I would like to be able to do that without it being a literal crisis every step of the way. But I was retelling the school mums yesterday my story of, like, you came over and wrapped all of my 140 personally signed books so that I could get them out exactly the way that I wanted them to get out, blah, blah. Posting them the next day was an absolute shit show.
I was wondering how you're going to do that.
I know, it was a shit show. And even that was like a mini crisis. It was like, it's a ridiculous story. And, I do love a good story.
Yeah.
And I am a storyteller. So I was retelling it we have this annual Christmas wreath making catch up with the school mums. So I was there yesterday and I was retelling them the story. And I was retelling it and thinking, sweet Jesus, every part of this year has been a mini crisis like this for me. I'm not usually someone who enjoys drama. I grew up with a lot of drama, and that was enough drama for a lifetime.
Mm.
So in general, I think that's why I really love the conscious work, is because it allows you to equilibrate with as much consciousness as you can muster as a human in any given moment. Like, also, disclosure statement.
Mm.
But I generally am not on the blood sugar highs of super high and super low and super high and super low. That's too exhausting. I can't love like that, and I can't live like that.
Did you used to?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I grew up with a mum who was bipolar.
So that was like your pattern, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's exhausting as a way to live. Exhausting. So this year, though, is taking me back to every single one of those triggers, which I find fascinating, even while I'm experiencing them. Like, probably like you also.
You're kind of in it,
a little bit psychoanalyzing it, going, what is this?
Yeah.
And I thought I'd left my mum, and yet here she is in another form,
Yeah.
So I can do way more than what I think I can, because I didn't think I could do anything that I've done this year.
That's massive for you to up-level like that in a time where the collective weight of the world was so heavy.
It's true. But in my own mind, I just didn't give myself another option. I didn't give myself an
Yeah.
I just went, this is it. Get it done.
Buck up and hold on.
Yeah. Let's do this.
I love it.
And I think the fear of not doing it, or the crushing sense of self that I knew would come if I didn't do it, was probably in many ways a bigger catalyst than any preconceived idea of success. Like, I think I was more running from what it would be like to not do those things than what it would be like to do them.
Yeah, so you're almost running from you weren't running to the inspiration, you were running from the pain of what it would feel like to be with yourself had you not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And I don't want to live a life of regret.
No.
If you're not going to play it all out on the dance floor, what the fuck is the point? Like, what are we actually doing here?
Yeah.
And I continuously ask myself that question. Like, if you're not willing to show up with it, like, what are we doing? What, we just
hanging out for a while? Like, yeah.
Give birth, raise children, get a job, pay a mortgage, die? Like, I don't get it. Like that. I've never got it.
But it's also really cool to get to that point too and go, I don't like that narrative. Like, I want something else out of that narrative.
Yeah, totally. Totally. So I think it was that. I also think that this year, I mean, it's a bit of a shadowy lesson, but I do really think that it's taught me how to, I'm not sure if balance is the word, but I think when I think about what I'm meaning is how to balance extreme work pressure and up-leveling and taking my career where I want it to go, whilst also holding and maintaining, though I also fully and freely admit that I often didn't meet the parenting bar that I would like to hold as a standard. But balancing and weighting what that looks like was also an enormous lesson for me this year, because I realised my children are far more resilient than I perceive they are, and far more capable than I perceive they are, and far less fragile than I perceive they are.
They feel like big lessons.
They're big lessons because I actually realised they didn't need me as much as I had for so many years said they did.
Ouch.
Yeah. Because really I needed them to need me that much, because then I didn't have to do the other things. Whereas I just really realised, like, yes, they still need me. I still choose to be a full-time stay-at-home mum whilst also working. Like, I still choose that. And mental health-wise for the teens, this is a massive year of really entering that with them, because they were completely socially isolated. It's a whole lot of sludgy stuff combined with, you know, hormones and growth and growing up and being around just your family basically all year. Like, there's a lot.
Yeah, it's big for teenagers.
Big for teenagers. But they needed me at certain times to be fully present, and then they just didn't need me. And it was part of that dance, I think, and really honouring that I can't provide everything, and they really do need their friends. Because I think there's this kind of mini fantasy in me that's like, I don't know, somehow I'll keep them coveted from the bad choices because we'll be everything.
Yeah.
Because, of course, my family home was nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
So it was this beautiful equilibration of that, because I could completely see that I could meet them in all the ways and still they'd need that. So how do I love that? And how do I move with that? And how do I let the apron strings, dare I say it, go just a little bit so that I can love that transition? And I actually think that's been a really beautiful lesson of grace. Because my son's about to turn 15. We're like way in the middle of the teens.
Yeah.
And he really needs to find who he is outside of me. But if I don't let him go, that's hard.
Well, if you don't let him go, he'll do things so that you resent him.
Yeah. Fair call.
So
fair call. I also learned that I could have really honest conversations with my kids about my own failures, and that they could be completely compassionately open to that.
Your own failures as your
parent.
As a parent.
Yeah. I'm really sorry I'm not meeting you in these ways. I really want to be able to do this, and right now I can't because I've got to do this. So that was also they were really great and profound conversations, and ones that I really saw Nick step up in, which was really beautiful for me to witness, particularly for my second, because I also didn't realise how attached she was. She's always been my full attachment child. And I think I've already said this to you, but, you know, life has always revolved around her in terms of I can see, always put her needs before my own. And in this year I didn't. And that was a rude awakening for her, and she didn't like it. So that combined with her turning 13 has ensued a lot of tumultuous moments with her. But largely that her dad and I have been a really connected front, because we also really know we're really here. And there's drawbacks to me being all about her and not working and having the financial gain, and therefore the ability of a life and a lifestyle that provides her and us, that isn't there when I don't do those things and I'm just there for her. So we really had these equilibrating conversations around gain and loss, which were really beautiful. And I watched her dad stand there and enter the conversation between her and I, and just really say, Jade, honey, Mum has been a stay-at-home mum all about you for 15 years. And now she wants some of that for her. And we're really going to celebrate that. And I was like, yeah, I have.
It's amazing.
And thank you. I do want some of that back for me.
It's beautiful.
So that was really beautiful. So I watch Nick step up in ways that he just never has before by virtue of just never being home.
Well, he was home. So he's been home the whole year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the lounge room, because we only have one living space, which has brought its own challenges because we have a toddler and 4 children and life, and he's in the lounge room trying to run business meetings.
Yeah.
It has been also a total shit show. But that's really up-leveled our ability to communicate around that, has led to us, starting to renovate the garage so that there is an office space that he can go to, which works better, I think, for everyone while he's got meetings on. And has meant that as my business has grown exponentially, that I've just been able to, because we've had zero childcare, obviously, this whole year, is be able to time my meetings around his meetings. So every lunchtime, we were like tag teaming. Okay, so I'll be on at 7:30. You've got to start work at 8:30. We'll swap then. Then you've got a lunch break at 12:30. I'll have a client 12:30 to 1:30, and then we'll swap again. And then you're off at 5:30. I'll do a client. It's been literally like that. So we have literally tag teamed based on lunch breaks and meetings and all the things. So that's been good and hard. Because it has meant that him and I see each other less, but that I've been able to grow my business at the rate that it has grown and maintain that and still be the full-time mum that I want to be. So it's like this beautiful juggling of trying to work out how to do all of those things in a way that I've never seen them done before.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And hard. Like it's both.
Yeah.
It's both. And I wrote a book, and every step of the path of that was brutal, and had a book launch, and every step of the path of that was brutal. So I've learned that I can do really hard shit, and whilst it's hard, I will still find a way, and that I'm really able to surrender to, with, and for my husband in those times when it's really hard, and I no longer hold on to the shields that I know I did and the armory that I know I did for my whole life. So that was also really affirming, because I was really aware of how and when to use my masculine and how and when to use my feminine. And that was definitely like for you, put to the test. And I kind of nailed it. So it's also really affirming.
Especially since it's so much where your work is going, right? So you got to live the challenge of that.
Yeah. So lesson number 1 would be your kids are actually doing way better than you think they are. And they probably don't need you as much as you say they do. Ouch.
Yeah.
But that love doesn't diminish with that lack of need.
Yeah.
It turns out it amplifies when you can love each other in more individualized wholeness rather than waiting for unified wholeness in order to love.
Can you break that down?
I think we have a version of connection that says when we're enmeshed with each other, we're connected. And therefore, when we're not enmeshed, when you're involved with someone else or something else, when your attention is diverted elsewhere, when you hate me, when you're repulsed by me or vice versa, that we're no longer connected. But I just don't see that as truth, because I see all of those as functional in ways of trying to get you to individuate, to ensure that you are living the life that is most meaningful and true to your soul. And our children have their own souls and their own purpose and their own trajectory, and it may have nothing to do with mine. So what does that look like for me to show them all of my wholeness and say, here I am, I'm flawed, and I can still love me through this because I still know I'm choosing my soul. And it's in integrity and alignment with who I am and who I'm here to be. And therefore I expect nothing less from you. What is most meaningful for you? What does that look like to really deeply love your friends and be lit up in that just because it's not a value I have?
Yeah.
And what does it look like to really deeply listen to your soul, even when it's not a value I have? And when I'm asking them to love me in what lights me up, how do I love them in what lights them up as an equal exchange?
Yeah.
And the more that we individuate, meaning the less we subordinate and merge into each other, the more we hold on to our own sense of self and identity and separateness, actually, the more love amplifies.
I love that.
So that's what I've learned. And I think it's a really, really deep lesson for teenagers, for like as a mother of teens.
Teenagers, yeah. But, you know, such a profound lesson to learn at the stage that they're at, because you may find that that gives you permission to have a more connected relationship because of that integration.
I really hope so, because I really did in my heart is I really want to be able to have those relationships where they find and know who they are. And they don't need to ask me everything in order to be safe in the world, but that they know that I'm here. And when they're willing and ready, I'm 100% there.
Yeah.
No different to with my work. Like, sure, it can be intense and full fucking on, but if one of my kids really needs me, I'm there. 100%. Work is put on hold. And I hold zero guilt, shame, judgment, blame, anything about that. And the women that I work with know that about me. So I can remember one where I was like, oh, I can't even think. I've got to shift our meeting that's whatever. Do you mind if you? And she's like, yeah, of course, absolutely, because I know that's really important for you and I would want you to live your best life, essentially. And I was like, wow, that's amazing.
So cool.
Because that's who we're working with.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that you can juggle it. I just think it probably looks different to the way that you think it looks, because I'm less involved in my children by virtue of this year, but more able to see them.
That's cool.
Yeah. But it would have been an intolerable form of love to be attachment parent me. That's growth.
And when you say that you're more able to see them, because you're not as enmeshed, you're able to see wider who they are.
Yeah. I'm less triggered because then there's more separation between the identity that's me and the identity that says they're me.
Yes. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. So I'm actually really, even though life has gotten crazier, I'm able to hold the regulation easier because there's that distance, which means I can meet them rather than just meeting myself. I hope I'm not speaking in tongues here for people who are following along. What else does it mean to see them? It means to really be able to bask in the gloriousness that is their evolution and development that is different to mine, even when it's cringy. And sometimes it is.
Yeah.
But being able to go, wow, okay, I can see you through the eyes of another. And there's love in that. And then just enjoying them, because when I'm really there, I really want to be there. I'm not thinking about other things. I'm not all of the time. Sometimes I was, certainly in COVID or in lockdown. I'm not talking about a perfect version of parenting by any stretch of the imagination, but I think what I'm meaning is less idealized versions of perfect and imperfect, and more an understanding of the evolution of souls that are here to grow and support each other, and where there's challenge, there's support, and where there's support, there's challenge. So if you can see all of that, it stops meaning anything. You know?
Yeah. I do. So how have you grown? I think you've answered
I think I've kind of answered a bit of that. How have I grown? I think I can own my craft more.
Yeah, I'd say that too.
But in a really embodied way, like there's just...
It's like landed in your body and psyche in a
there's just a
deeper way this year.
Yeah, I'm not even, it's weird, but I'm like not even super uber celebrating myself for all the milestones that I've made this year. I'm just like, yeah, I did that. And I am really proud of myself for doing that. But I see the cost and the challenge and the depths that took me to which equilibrates it. And I'm like, yeah, it was great. But that was as it was supposed to be. And where are we going?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Tuck it in, keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that I'm really just balancing my parenting. Because I always ask myself, what is conscious parenting? Like, what is conscious? Because every time I think I'm as conscious as I could possibly be. And yet next year I find new layers of consciousness. And then I ask myself again, what is conscious parenting?
Remember that it's what you can perceive in that moment, and you can't perceive everything. So what is it really?
Exactly. That's my point.
I know.
So I think that's what I've learned this year is my kids can roll with really hard shit, and it pulls them together in ways that they can't and won't when I'm there doing it for them. And that my own soul is really important to how I show up in this world. So probably need to listen to that.
Powerful. What are you taking with you? Listening to your soul.
The truth and honesty with my children about where I'm at with my work.
Yeah.
This is what I've got going on. These are the things, That's been really big. What else am I taking with me? I'd really like a rest. It's been a really intense year for me. I feel like my adrenals are absolutely slaughtered. So I would really just like a breather before I say yes to the next big thing. I really want some nourishment, just a bit of a come back down again, because I have really grown in all of the ways this year and obliterated every edge that I thought or perceived that I had. So I think there needs to be a level of peace and integration after a time like that. And I can feel the bone tiredness in my body, and that's not my normal. So I just really recognize that I still need a period of convalescence. So I just want to be conscious of my own convalescence. What else am I taking with me? I'd like to say foresight. The trouble with my book stuff was I didn't ever know what I needed to do until I arrived there. And by the time I arrived there, it was too late. It was that feeling of I'm too late. It's a bit like the rabbit in Alice in Wonderland. It's how I felt this entire year. So I would like to have more foresight, though I don't know how you arrive at that without having travelled something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what else I'm taking with me. The fact that I can do really hard shit and I can do it over and over, and even when I think I've got nothing less, I really still have stuff left.
That's really
Sorry.
Cool.
I do think that that's cool. Even when you think you're at burnout. Turns out you're not. That's just a construction, because what is capacity? Don't actually really have capacity. Capacity is as endless as consciousness, right? Like, what is capacity? I perceive I have these limits on my capacity, and then I reach the capacity and there's a vast ocean beyond it. And then I reach that one, there's more vast ocean. And then I reach that one and there's more. So then I look at my limits. I had 5 limits ago, and I think, what is capacity? It's a construction. It's not a truth.
Based on what limits you built in your own mind.
Yeah.
A little bit like, sometimes when you've got one child, you can't possibly imagine that you'd ever be a functioning human with 3.
Yes, true.
True. You just find more.
That's right. 100%. So that was a really long run, but we really hope that you gain some wisdom out of those questions and will take the time to journal and explore them for yourself. And if you would love to solidify that with a bit more consciousness and ritual and process, then please come and join us in Soul Driven Motherhood for Amplify, where we spend the month of January really nailing and locking in what your intentions, affirmations, and beliefs are for the year that is to be. And yes, it makes a difference. It is very different to New Year's resolutions that are lofty, unattainable, without strong foundations and without a clear understanding of your values and how you're working towards them. It's a very different construct when you're manifesting with clear intention, congruence, and the capacity to have a space in which you integrate that. So please come and join us for Amplify in Soul Driven Motherhood.
Yes.
And to connect with you, Bridget.
SuburbanSandcastles.com. And you, Jules?
Is thepleasurenutritionist.com.
No, it's julietanner.love.
Oh my God. I still, every time I have like this conscious part of my brain, julietanner.love, julietanner, and then I'm like, oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. It is julietanner.love.
Yes.
I'm trying really hard.
You're doing great. You're doing great. It's late. We're recording. It's very late.
It's true.
Remember to nourish the woman, to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
And if you want to support Nourishing the Mother and all the late nights, the early mornings, the blood, sweat and tears we pour into our art, then please go to patreon.com/NTM podcast and become our patron. As a patron, you're helping all of the cost of operating this podcast, the hosting, the editing, the transcription, helping all of that be completely covered, and joining a community who are all about honouring our journeys and continuing to open. The more support we have, the longer we can last. So become a patron. We'd love to have you. Go to patreon.com/NTM podcast. We literally couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for listening, and please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.